and the event. So obviously this is another installment of the live series Roundtable event by Amicus Recruitment. So if you don't know about us already, we recruit across the UK, the US, all over Europe, including the Nordics. And we cover Python, Golang, Rust, JavaScript and machine learning. And I focus on Node across Germany. And today we're going to be talking about what developers should be learning in order to advance their career. And we're joined by Marc Zahn, who's Head of Engineering at Loopline Systems, Sanyam Arya, who is Head of Engineering at Weeve, and Daniel Santana, who is the former Head of Engineering at VERSO. And I suppose maybe we could go around and start off by each of you maybe just introducing yourselves and telling us a bit about what you currently do.
Yeah. Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead, Marc.
I start.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, as Aiden said, my name is Marc. I am Head of Engineering at Loopline System, a small startup. And I am doing basically pretty much everything right here, like driving the technical strategy, keeping care of the infrastructure, taking care or extending, maintaining the product, overtaking large parts of the hiring, mentoring our developers. Yeah, but on a smaller scale now. And before I was at another company, and there we released office equipment, and I was there the head of engineering, responsible for 2 teams of 10 developers in total. And they're pretty much, besides this, the same thing, like building the team, hiring people, taking care of the infrastructure, managing all these things, also bringing the product forward, like doing delivery management, all these things. Yeah, this is the last years of my background, so to say, to not go too far in the past.
Excellent. Sanyam, do you want to maybe go ahead?
Yep, sure. Can you still hear me, guys?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you.
So I think my journey has been like a roller coaster. I started as a hardware engineer, writing firmwares for hardware. Then I shifted somewhat to software because I thought that can be learned. I was wrong for sure, but I thought it could be learned just by watching YouTube videos. And that is how I entered the software industry. But when I entered, I realized that it's for sure not enough. That's why we have a 4-year course in computer science, not just YouTube videos to learn software. Yeah, but I learned it the hard way, but I learned it in a good way. So every time I failed better with my coding. And yeah, so within I think 2 or 3 years, I developed as what I call as a full stack. So I could write firmware till CSS. So like everything in between. So that is how I evolved, and this is how I got a chance to work for an IoT company, which is called Weeve, because IoT is a combination of all the technologies, everything that you can do. And yep, so then in my journey, I've gained some leadership skills as well, which I think were seen by my CTO here. And within 4 months, I got 2 promotions and being the head of engineering for the company. And so when I joined the company, before that it was a blockchain company. It has to shift some gears. And then I got the chance to build a team from scratch. Like it was a very good opportunity for me. So I have a retention rate of 98%. Just one guy left because he was sick, not because of me. just to make that clear. So I placed in a lot of frameworks and a lot of strategies how to create and retain talent within your team. And similarly, I designed the architecture here, and yep, I quite like what I do. And I will hand over the mic to Daniel. Not
Thank
physically,
you,
but yeah.
Thank you, Sanyam. We have a similar start. I'm now this is like kind of like a big news. I'm CTO in a company called Umatrix. Is basically an AI to empower service. Long discussion in the topic, and I started also with hardware, like building machines in the time where you had to put all the jumpers in the machines, and you could just burn it all the motherboard just because you switched it,
that.
You connected wrongly, and then PCI and stuff like this. So this was my start, and then I went into data, afterwards into backend development, and then I specialized myself in front end. At some point, I went to the leadership. I had I'm from Brazil. I had some startups back then, and then 5 years ago I moved to Germany to work as a head of engineer, and now CTO of this company. There's a little bit of myself. I understand the pain, Sanyam, with the I started the hard way as well. Like in a time when the documentation was very rare, there was no Google, and man, like you needed to read some books like this size to understand how to build some 5 or 6 lines of code. Then Google arrived and everything was way easier. But at the same time, we were probably got a little bit of this as well, Marc, being kind of like obliged to learn the language, because there was no video, there is nothing. It was like English, pure English, and so this was my start. That's
Excellent.
it for my start.
I think developers are still bad with documentation. So if you ask anybody in my company, they will say I am the document. So
excellent. Cheers for that, everyone. That's really good introductions on like who you are and where you got to. Suppose like a really good thing, because we're talking about what developers should be learning. Do each of you maybe want to tell us one thing that you've learned in your career that you think is like the most valuable thing that you've learned?
Yeah, maybe to just do the start. I was thinking about this up front, and I think the most important thing that I learned in my career was to learn from other people. This means not just from peers, but also from managers, even from other departments. So how people, for example, communicate, how even to take care of people, or how to handle people, these things that you need for leadership. So because in the end, most things are just about the people. And learning this, of course, also professional skills, being open to new things, being open to learn from other people. This is something that is super important. And I experienced some people in the past who had problems with their ego, and this is always problematic. So for me, this is the very main point that each developer should be open to.
Great, Marc. I would like to extend that. I also have some similar understanding of what I have learned through my career. So I think if you don't learn continuously, you will be obsolete in, say, 2 years. And even if you are working with, say, Node.js JavaScript, there is a new framework every month, I guess. So it's very difficult to keep yourself updated. And I think that's the best thing you could do. As now AI is also emerging, people are saying that it will replace humans, replace developers. But I don't think it coming anytime soon. But if you don't cope up with it, if you don't learn how to use AI, then someone who is using AI can replace you for sure. Not AI itself, but
yeah, definitely.
And one thing which I also learned, as say the other way around, as a leader, is like common sense is not very common. So you should not expect people to have common sense about what you told them or what you just said them verbally. So yeah, I think also I think Daniel would agree that documentation is very important, and we as a developer generally forget to do that.
Yep. Yeah. I'm from my experience, like I have 25 years of experience. I come from a time completing with the documentation. I come from a time when we used to have slower rhythm in terms of development. The technology was not so fast. So we had maybe some 6 months only to write documentation. And we learned the hard way why we reached some level of self-documented code and decreasing the cost of the documentation, because at some point, if the documentation is super good, it's expensive to maintain. and we never have the time to maintain that. So like, let's say I used to write those big comments describing what is like the function purpose and every parameter and everything, blah, 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 blah. This was like a kind of like my pattern until 5-7 years ago. And when I moved to Europe, I come with I faced some heavy peer reviews where my code was being denied because it was documented, and it's like,
really?
sorry.
No. I was just surprised about it.
So basically, at the time, and this is a nice, like I went deep into this into the understanding of this kind of like a pattern nowadays of the documentation, where basically if we write a code, like let's say following naming conventions, and if we write a code following, for example, solid, it's well documented already. If we have, and this was basically what was very tough for me to learn or to change in my mindset, because I wanted to explain what my function was doing. And basically there was this day that one like a super high level architect of a fintech company come to me and say, hey man, if your function needs explanation, you are not following solid. You are doing too much. If you have, let's say, a good naming convention, one single purpose of your methods, if you are following the patterns, the only thing that is necessary for someone to understand your code is knowing the language, and then it's just reading. And I went a little bit disappointed that day, because really, like I spent maybe 10-15 years mastering the technique of a well-documented code. And I went to do some researches and say, like, why those guys are not documenting? Like, they are crazy. Like, this is a huge system for a huge bank in London. Like, makes no sense, this strategy. So I went deep to research, and it's like, there is some stuff there. And another thing that later on came is the importance of the tickets. Jira then become the documentation system of my systems. So nowadays I kind of like a demand is too heavy, but I kind of like inspire the product people or anyone writing the tickets to write a proper ticket. And then we have a kind of like a documentation. You want to understand, let's say, the functionality or some epic, for example, you have the entire story, how we got there. And when you want to understand the business logic and the things behind it, we have usually the code as a good practice. But for this, we need to have, and this is a little bit of what I search when I'm hiring, getting back to the original topic. One of the things is the openness of the people to change their coding style, for example. And I usually give the example of now I'm in Norway, you guys are in Germany, and we are understanding each other perfectly, because we are speaking the same language. And when we think this way in terms of coding style, I don't want everybody to code like I do, nor I want to code like everyone does. But if we follow some coding patterns and standards, I don't need to stop and read and understand, like, what Sanyam wanted to do here. Like, what is this? Like, why he's doing this? No, actually, it's not necessarily those 10 lines. We can solve this into 2 lines. So if we follow some predefined standards, and this is one thing that I usually brainstorm with the teams, that we reach some levels of coding standards, then the code is pretty clear. Like, you enter in view. If I get Sanyam new functionality to do a PR, for example, I don't need to understand how he thinks, because we are following some same code stuff. So this is what I wanted to contribute. on this topic. The idea is to reduce the time, because many times during my career and in the end, what the guy told me is completely truth. When the documentation gets too complicated, it's too expensive to maintain. And nowadays we don't have this time.
So I think
I totally agree to you guys. Something came to my mind that I forgot to say, and I got told this explicitly recently, and it's totally true. I mean, I did this all the time implicitly, but it's good to hear it explicitly, is that next to these professional skills, like technical skills, like writing good code, about architecture, all these things, which is super important, what turned out for me to be also one of the most important things is the idea of ownership and bringing things out. Because I saw junior developers becoming senior developers within 1 year, professionally wise. Because so technically this is relatively easy, but getting this idea of ownership and doing things and bring them out for the sake of create value and not for the sake of developing, this is often hard to bring into the people's mind. And yeah, this is very, I mean, it's on a very high level, and it's maybe not exactly what people want to hear usually, but this is the essence for me in the end, what it comes down to. But I agree, as I said, I agree totally. Those are absolutely valid things, and I saw a lot of people who didn't follow these principles, and there it was very hard to work with as well, definitely.
So most of the time, the things that people don't want to hear is the things that they need to hear. So, I think that's why we are having this this roundtable here. And I also agree with Daniel that I also believe that the only comment is a good comment that is never needed to be written. So
yeah, I find it sometimes I find it really hard, to be honest. I mean, I know these things solid, and this is all totally fine. But at some points, really, for me, there's a need for explaining things.
Exactly.
Because you cannot always in an algorithm explain why you do things. And then here and there, for me, it makes sense to write a documentation line. But of course, it needs to be updated. I saw it also very often, what you mean, I think, that there was a documentation in the code and no one knew what it was good for. The next level thing, which is even worse, was code which was just commented. So now the question was, is this needed? Is it commented for a particular reason? And yeah, here I'm absolutely with you.
So
but
I also,
here and there.
Sorry.
No, this was it. Sorry for interrupting.
I also wanted to extend on that. So if you are writing comment for a function, the code itself tells you what it does, but the comment should define why the piece of code is written there. So if you don't do the how, but do the why in the code, then I think it will make more sense, and it will be more maintainable, because maybe your algorithm change in the future, but the outcome of that function somewhat remains the same. So that's what I personally follow, and I teach people who I mentor. That's a good practice that has worked well for me till now.
Yeah. Sounds absolutely reasonable for me as well.
Very, very good one. And the ownership, wow, very good point as well. This is another point that I also evaluate when I'm working with somebody, when it's like a, let's say, trial period and so on, is this sense of ownership that you mentioned, Marc, because usually what we own, we take more care, and we go until the end. Instead of like developing something to deliver, we usually tend to go like an, I don't know, like a extreme programming style, and it's like it's done, la la la, and then the PR. When we have the sense of ownership in what we do and in the project and so on, the same with the team, this tends to bring way more fun, I believe, like integration with the team, and at the same time the quality of the product that is developed. Those are very important skills that I evaluate when I'm hiring someone. is that I feel this, like the person cares about what they are doing.
Yeah,
I usually also say that I like to work with people that minds what they are writing in terms of code, not to work only, but respecting the other person that will read that in the future. So it's like when someone is writing something like a super complicated algorithm or a super easy algorithm, it's like, oh, guys, let's care that someone will read this in the future. So let's make it nice. And even can be yourself. I don't know how many times this probably happened with you guys as well. I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years after you're writing a code, you go to maintain what you did. And you look and you say like, oh man, I could have done way better.
Yeah. I know. I also think sometimes, oh my God, this could be so simple. And especially junior developers, also this is an experience that I made. They read a book or watch the video and they take this for truth. So it doesn't matter what it is.
That's
like,
me.
like dependency injection, thin controller, flat service, and sometimes always so overdoing these things. And I mean, for myself, it happened in the past as well. I wrote something and I thought it's super great.
Yes.
Really, I was really on fire. So, and 3 weeks later, I thought, so what the heck did I do here? So, and yeah, it's exactly it. Looking for simplicity, looking that other people can also read it. Also, this is also some kind of soft skill that people should come with. Yeah,
So
I know what you mean. Absolutely.
If I come back from a vacation, I even can't understand my own code. So
this was a nice vacation then.
Yeah.
That's how I define.
From the job.
Man, what I was thinking when I did this, like, oh no, there is a.
And also,
or how many times you get those huge blocks of code and say like, no, this is not needed. This is not needed. Okay, there we go. This is the function, and it's working.
And now tests come in play to see if it still works after you had this great idea of removing all the code. While I love in pull requests to see red lines when they are going to be deleted. This is always pretty tempting. Also, the code reviews are shorter than this is always also nice.
All the times. Go for it.
I just wanted to quote something that I read. I think when I started my career as a developer, it says that any fool can write a code that the computer understands, but only good developers write code that other human can understand.
Oh, this is nice. In German, we have a saying which is called, how could it be translated? Dying in beauty, which means so like you can do things perfect, and you keep on going and make it even more perfect. But in the end, you never deploy something. So, and it's super shiny, super sophisticated, but you could never come to an end. And also, those are the parts then you come to an end, and then you don't know what you wrote at the start, so to say. And which is kind of related to your vacation story.
And a lot of the things that you've all said, obviously this is like what you're looking for in someone when you want to work with them. And obviously this is like a lot of it's things that you'd identify after already working with them. So say like when you're in an interview process, how do you try to identify these kind of skills, and what do you look for during that process?
I have let's say like a coding challenge, for example. I don't like the coding challenge to test the development skill itself. Like I will not give a code challenge for a super senior guy. I will just give like 5-10 minutes talk with the person. It's enough to know his level. But let's say if someone is like a beginner or an intermediary level, I would create some coding challenge. And during the coding challenge, you usually can see how those skills are, like the naming of the things, like how the person code and so on, if possible during the interview. If not, some of those skills, I would say they can only be identified as like after working. Like the clean code strategy, for example, this is very, very hard to identify in a interview, because the person can go and describe solid, can describe clean code and good standards. But when they sit to code, you look and say like, yeah, he knows what to do, but he's not following.
Yeah, for me, it's always a little an holistic picture. It's not just the technical part, because let's assume, for example, we are looking for a senior developer. Then again, on a high level, so I'm looking for someone who is, for example, who shows the indication or signs that he's also really possible to communicate about his work, to be able to explain why did he do something the way he did it. And I myself also, I have a task, but the one is not needed to code it, because I made the experience, an interview is always an asymmetrical situation. So you have the guy from the company who has the power, so to say, and the candidate who is in a defensive position, more or less. Of course, we always try to avoid this, but it happens, and it is like this. Let's face it. And here, in this case, it's 2 tasks. One is a refactoring task. So, and I tell them always, hey, we have this in this situation, and show him this piece of code. And I would like you to change it, to refactor it so that it fulfills some conditions and requirements. And this, from there on, I see, so how do they approach it? How do they think? How do they communicate? As I said, the very important part. So how do they explain? Why do they do it like this? And for me, this makes pretty much sense, and it shows me how the guy's working. The second thing is an architectural task, which is related to our distributed system, and here are some queues and so on. Same thing. They also don't have to be perfect or bring a perfect solution, because under this pressure, this is never possible. But to give a glimpse, because in the end also, it's always little like a gambling, right? So is this one really good, or can he sell himself very good? And I did these coding challenges, live coding challenges earlier as well, but I made the experience that people are under such a pressure that they sometimes even forget the syntax of the language they're using each day, because they're, and then it would be too sad to reject someone because at this moment he was not able to do it, and actually he has the knowledge. And and this is my experience that I had. I always did before another approach with the homework, but it turned out when the people then have, don't know, 3 days or a week to do a homework, a very small application, every one of them did it super well and could explain everything. And this showed me, so when they have too much time, of course they can do all the things. And yeah, this was not really showing so how they work. And it could, I think maybe it's possible to get a glimpse out of this as well, but for me it didn't work out by now. But I'm also always open to try new things. And the second thing, what I mentioned at the beginning is the soft skills. They're very simple things like when I start the interview, how's the people, or how's the guy or the girl, whoever, behaving? Are they smiling, or are they easy to going? These things, because this shows then how can the people communicate and how would they play in the team. I don't, of course, expect anyone to smile at the beginning because of this asymmetric situation.
It will look weird.
Really sweating and super nervous, and to see this, and I'd always try to calm them down and bring a comfortable situation. And I think mostly it works. I also always ask for feedback afterwards. And I mean, you never know how honest this is, but I have the feeling it is honest. Yeah, but how they behave in the interview, because this is mostly also the way how they behave later on in the team. And this is how I approach it.
So I think I have a bit different understanding about this. So I believe that developers are the fastest evolving species. So I generally, when I try to interview someone, I generally try to see the foreseeable future. Like, what could this guy or this girl be if he or she gets proper training or mentoring under me? Because I generally have a one-to-one interaction with every engineer that I hire, or even the designers. So I generally try to hire for people who they could be if they join my team, not for what they are, like they could do, because every company have different requirements and I still believe that having exceptional coding skills and cracking in interviews are two different set of skills. Like it is it is in very common, I think, in the software industry that people who are good at coding are somewhere good at interviewing as well, or in the interviews as well. But if you see any other kind of work, say DevOps engineer or designers, they might be very good at design language or describing what they design, but when it comes to interview, it is a completely different phase, because you have a different mindset, you have a pressure to get hired, and you make up things as well. And I used to be very judgmental, but as I think everybody here has been on both sides of the table, I started in applying for jobs, and now you guys are hiring. So I think that's what changed my mind, because I transformed really quickly, because my transformation, it took it around 1.5 years when I went from this side of the table to the other side of the table. So I carried the pressure that I had on the other side of the table, and I tried to implement this. So I have a framework which I call the Beyond Technical Interview. So which is a 3-round interview with no coding challenges, because when I appear for coding challenges, I hate the interviewer. I don't know why. I thought that maybe it might be the case with other guys also. So I have first interview, which is around 20 to 30 minutes, is just get to know. And this is, I think, the most important interview. In this, I mostly decide 80% of the time if I want to hire this person or not. So the first impression is very important. And then we have the 2 other interviews, which is also around 30 to 45 minutes, which is with 2 different person. And I don't share the result between the 3 interviews, like the first one, me, and the other 2. And they have completely opaque perspective of the candidate. So they don't discuss about the candidate before. And these interviews are independent of each other, like not level up interviews, but parallel interviews. And then we compare the results. If at least two of the 3 interviews have the positive perspective, then this is how I go. Because I think said worked very well for now, because it's very difficult to judge someone in an interview. As I also, when I was interviewing, I was on the other side of the table. I was also it was very difficult for me also to explain what I know and how could I do better. I just wanted to make things work in an interview. And I think we have to pierce through this if you want to get great candidates or people who could really add value to the team. So I think in summary, I would just say I just hire them for who they could be, not what they are right now.
I can support this. When I look at the entire hiring process that we have, we do it exactly the same way. We have 3 interviews. And then coming together afterwards and throwing our opinions into the ring, so to say. And we, I don't know how you guys are doing it. We are really looking for a yes and not a not, of course, and also not for a why not. So it must be at least the same thing as you. In the best case, from everyone comes a yes, because why not always implies actually it's not the best, like it's maybe average, or I don't like him for whatever reason. And even this don't like someone might be an indication of you have always these gut feelings a little. And this other thing too, it's I also hired people already just for their potential. Makes totally sense. Totally right. I support you totally on this. You never know what a kind of raw diamond you have in your hands.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. There is one other thing that I also check during the interviews, if the person knows how to listen. This is this is one thing that I would like to add. I would say this is something that I can kind of like deny on site. If a person is not allowing me to work and to say something in the interview, I say like, this will not work in 6 months. This person is kind of like sitting behind my back and say, "Go, Daniel, go." This is one thing. Yeah, because I'm like, faster than you. This is one thing, and aligned with what you said. Also, combining both Sanyam and Marc. When I give the test, I want to see how the person works under pressure, but at the same time, I prepare the kind of like an environment where the person will not feel the pressure. The pressure is there. It's kind of like anxious because, yeah, you want the job, you are being tested, blah, 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 blah. But one thing is like, I don't care if it succeed or not. Our objective here is not to test your coding skills. I'm not here to see the application running in the end. So I just want to see like your
approach,
connection with your environment. So it's basically, this is the reason that I don't send tests is because I don't know how many times friends of mine asked me to develop their test. And this is like, I don't know if the guy is doing it and he can explain and everything and so on, but he can also be trained to explain. So in order to get rid of this trusting issue, I say like, let's see how the person is with his own environment. So he's like using his own computer. You choose the language you want. You choose the Git repository, the repository you want. You do like whatever you want. And I will mute myself and you do whatever you want. This is the goal. So I give, for example, an API. It's like a front-end developer. I will give an API like, oh, I want you to call this API and show results. And then usually I would see, for example, when how the front-end person is caring about the results. So usually it's like some images and some name ID image. If the person puts like 1, 2, 3 styles naturally, this is what I would like to see. If the person in the end is just like, code, boom, done. Look ugly, no care about look and so on. It's like, okay, there is a problem here. Or so if the person goes using packages for everything, like the first thing the person goes and do is like a bootstrap. I say like, I not hired this guy because it's a nice strategy to care about the layout with a bootstrap, for example. But this person, if I'm hiring a senior guy, for example, I would be worried that this guy is not caring about performance. And a good front-end developer would care about performance. So in the end, I really don't care about, no problem. So in the end, I really don't care about the result. It's like what was the steps the guy did. And there was a situation when there was like this senior guy that I was hiring, and he was exactly as you described it, Marc. Like the guy was sweating and like probably he was like shaking and so on.
No, I'm so sorry with them.
Yeah, I give him like I stopped him at some point. Say, hey man, let's agree on something. There's no pressure here, man. I'm your friend. So like, let's not care about the result. Let's not care if you're gonna be hired in the end or not. Just let's have fun here. Like do what you know how to do.
Yeah, I think
the
this
guy,
is a good approach.
Can I turn the camera for a minute? Get a little bit of water. Yeah, man, go for it. The guy returns. In the end, he was the best guy of my team. The guy is like a genius from Nigeria. I built the team there in Nigeria because of this guy. And years later, he used to repeat the same thing. Like, you give me the chance to calm down. Like you brought me back. Because he was kind of like a lost, I need to make this happen, and and he frees his mind with this. And this came from a job test I did. Was a very heavy process for a company, whatever company in Germany, and 6 hours interview straight, one after another. Bam. I succeeded in all of them, but the last round. In the last round, I experienced something that I never experienced before. My brain just kaput. I knew the answers, and the guy like, and it was like a database in the last round, and it's like, what is cluster? And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Sorry, I don't remember.
Relate to this.
So the lesson learned, of course, I didn't get the job, but the lesson learned from this is like, man, I will never do this with a candidate. So I start usually my interviews saying to the person, I respect very much your time here. So I will do like I don't intend to break you, go into the why not that you mentioned, Marc. I'm not here to break you. I'm here to like let's exchange knowledge here and see if it's a good fit. And usually when like by the start, connecting back with your previous question, Aiden, in the start, I usually bring this feeling of calmness of, hey, I won't be testing you. If you tell me you can do it, I believe you. It's okay. And then tell me a little bit of the problems that you faced, how you solved, and la la la. So basically, some questions that usually people explain how they solve problems without going to tech, where someone might be a little bit too anxious to go in the right way, I would say.
I also what was also important for me is I thank you for this explanation. It's also interesting for me. I mean, same thing, right? I'm always happy to learn from or see other perspectives and learn from them. It's pretty interesting, this talk. Is also how honest they are a little, because I had once a guy, and I mean, for me, so asking about here, looking for the potential definitely is super important. I also look for this knowledge that they have to see about the foundation that they have. And I had once a guy who had on his CV a lot of technologies, like 3 lines of whatnot. And he wrote down as well DynamoDB, this document-oriented database from AWS, and we were working with this, but we were starters, and I thought, why not? It's a good thing. Let's see. And I was asking him so about his experience about DynamoDB, and he started so talking around a little, and I thought so, and started asking more, and somewhere in the end it turned out he watched one YouTube video about DynamoDB, you know, and there I thought, so come on, guy, this is why are you doing this? I mean, better be honest and write the 5 technologies that you're really, really good in and really professionally with, instead of showing up with or showing off with all these things which are not true in the end. This is really also such a sad thing, and this is then really a red flag. So if people pretend to be able doing things, because this shows then also what you said, Sam, here, what is your potential in the end when you start like this?
I also like what you said, Marc, about being honest. So also I try to be on the other side, and I also try to be honest with the candidate I'm interviewing. So if I don't want to proceed with someone or want to proceed with someone, I tell them upfront in the interview directly, so that they don't wait for responses from the HR or something. And before that, I also ask them to rate their interview on a scale of 1 to 10, being 1 being worst and 10 being like you are being hired. And most of the time I get an honest answer, and I just ask them, like, you rated it very correctly or a bit wrong, but that's why you will not get another call from us, or congratulations, you will have another interview. So I just be honest, because I don't like time is very expensive. Like no amount of money can buy 1 second of time.
Yeah, true.
So don't waste it. Try to not to waste it for anybody, not just me, but for also the candidate, so they don't have false hope, or they are, or also if they are selected, they don't have this thing happening in their brain.
Yeah, so sometimes I actually like this as well, and I did it for a while, but someone turned out for me that I better think about this for at least a couple of hours, because sometimes I think in the interview, okay, this was a struggle or this was not good enough. But then some hours later, looking back, sometimes I think, and could change my mind. But indeed, I try at least to notify them the next day. Exactly what you said. You know, this when you wait 2, 3, 4 days in the worst case, or until the end of the week, this is really disrespecting. And yeah, this is something that one should definitely avoid. On the other side as well, when I'm a company, and I try to hire someone and I say them, hey, you're in the next round, or we would like to hire you, here's your offer. And then they wait a week or so until they respond. I mean, I know their situation and they have usually multiple hiring processes in parallel. The companies usually as well, of course. But nonetheless, at least something like a message, drop a message. So, hey, I need some time to think about it. This is also something that is a big plus for me.
So I also started like that, Marc, having taken some time, but I just refined my interview process. I iterated a lot of time in, and I have also written a case study about it. It's called, as I said, Beyond Technical. So basically, so that helps me to determine it in, say, the first 15 minutes of the interview. If there's a black or a white, like say 0 or 1, but if it is in a gray area, I still keep time. But most of the time, I think you guys have really a great experience. I think you just instinct, you know it in the first few seconds or first few minutes that this guy is good for the team or not. And then you try to challenge your first decision with the further questions or the further interviews thing. So if the first answer is yes, then it's just, I think, general human tendency to try to keep this as a yes and ask questions. But if it's no, you also, like, as you are hiring for your own team, you try to turn this no yourself to a yes and ask questions that the guys should answer. So as there's the first instinct. So this is all based around that psychology, my case study. So it is like not very difficult, or like, I think it's you guys do it unconsciously all the time, but you just don't know that you are doing that most of the time.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I'm doing this in fact. So, and this is why I also try to, or why I think about afterwards, to not keep this bias in mind that you might have from this actual situation, but get disconnected from it a little, and then looking back with a more neutral way and a more neutral perspective. I know exactly what you mean. This is very dangerous. Because sometimes it's just because you like this guy, because he's a nice person or something, bias is so much that you look over his how to say, the thing, to look over the things that he's not good in or not good enough in. So yeah, totally agree with you. This is a really nice one.
Yeah, I had a situation. I got a job as a head of engineer at one German company, and the connection with the CTO was so good that when I received an offer, I received multiple offers, and I contact them because I wanted the job, and I say, hey, this is the situation. Like, is there a date for the next round and so on? Because I can hold the offers that I have. And the guy liked me so much that he said, like, whatever, the next rounds, and hired. It was a mistake. It didn't work out, and I was not the person he or the company needed, and I was not ready for. Like, it was like a too big step, and in the end we had to stop. Like, they had to fire me, and it was exactly this that happened. Our connection was so good, and when he felt the pressure of, I have an offer here. What we are going to do? Okay, what you need to, when can we start? So he jumped at the steps that would probably kind of like a filter me. In other hand, when hiring, I'm like, Sanyam, do you have you have this study of yours published or something?
Not yet published, but I can send you the PDF.
Oh, nice, man.
No problem.
Yeah, I would like. It seems like a very. It's something that I am aware that that I kind of like that I do when I take a decision and I start justifying the decision, and I try to not to challenge the decision, but I'm very honest in the interview when the process. So I have like some sort of a script that I will follow. Doesn't matter if the first question, for example, I already see the guy or the girl and say, like, man, I will hire this person. That's like, I like that the style is exactly what, but I keep like I follow the plan. This is like my strategy. And at the same time, if I identify something that is kind of like a warning zone, I I change a little bit the process exactly to explore this warning zone. But usually in 10-15 minutes of interview, I usually know if I will continue with this person or not, which means that by the end of the interview, I usually already give the answer usually to people, because I just don't like people losing time. So I tell them like, look, I like we will have a new round, which then I have like some other stages, so other people can certify or challenge the factors that I identified, the positive and negative, with product and the team as well.
I wanted to say something, but I just slipped out of my mind.
maybe
maybe
about the study.
No,
Maybe.
not about the. Oh yeah, about the script. So, what to say? Like you have like a set of questions. So I mean, not written most of the time, but through your experience, you already know what do you want to ask. So I have basically two kind of question. One is general, what I want to know about the guy, and the other one is I call the deal breakers. So if it is in a gray area or not in the say one, then it's definitely a deal breaker. So we cannot continue forward with that. And if something is not a deal breaker, then sure, like, you can still continue and talk and try to convert that no to a yes.
What are these deal breaker questions? Can you give one or two examples?
Yeah. It's, for example, I generally people have at least 2 languages on their CV. So I ask them, what is the difference between the language, or what do you prefer if you were assigned the next project? And based on the answer about this gives you a very good understanding of how they do at least know one of the languages. And if they are not good at, so let's say programming has 2 parts. One is programming and the other one is language. No one can teach you the programming part of the programming language. Either you can do it or can't do it. And the other one is language, is just to know the syntax and where to use the language. So if they are good at the second part, they appeared for the interview because they are good at the first part. And I try to know if they know at least one language very well. And if this is not the case, so you can be jack of all, but you should be at least master of one. So
but when you maybe I got you wrong, did you mean when he's bad in programming, then that he's not able, or that they are not able to learn, or did I get this wrong?
I said that you cannot judge the programming skills in an interview, or maybe if you don't take a live coding session. But if you're talking to a person, it's very difficult to judge their programming skills. But I try to check their language skills, how well they know the language. So asking a question that differentiate between 2 languages that they use, or which one they prefer, gives me a very clear understanding of if they know one language well or not. And if they don't know, this is a deal breaker for me.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. So let's say, like, for example, person comes with Microsoft.NET and JavaScript, for example. When you ask the difference between them, yeah, I can see the potential of and the power of this question. Interesting. Thanks for that.
That's good. Yeah, I'm just having a look at the time here. Obviously, I said it was going to last an hour, so I think we've maybe got enough time for one question. And I think I'll ask this quite a broad one on the main topic that we're discussing. So, final question: what advice would you give to developers in order to get the most out of their career?
I would say keep learning.
I think also what I found out little too late maybe is, I mean, when you are young, I say this from my perspective, you should try out 2 things. I would actually say on a higher level, because on a lower level, learning technologies, keeping up with technologies, all that definitely is super important. But 2 things that I would say is change your employer once in a while, or your environment at least, because in software development, sticking to a company for, I don't know, 10 years or so doesn't bring you more experience, or brings you just a smaller amount of experience. compared to when you don't know, switch to companies, smaller companies, bigger companies. So you have enough time to build your career. So I'm always advocating for going into different environments. And the second one is at some point know where you want to go to. So for example, which direction do you want to go to? Do you maybe want to go at some point to a tech lead position or to a managerial position? Because I mean, this is often what it leads to, because usually people don't stay or don't remain a normal developer. At some point they want to go somewhere. And it's because I have also this roller coaster CV. And looking back, I wish that I could, that I would have done this earlier, this plan. But I mean, this is not enforceable, but it's definitely good to have an idea where you want to go to. Those are the things that I, for a career level, what I would recommend.
So I would just like to add in that. So I generally ask, this is a subconscious question that I ask in my mind to the person, is like, do you have 5 years of experience or 1 year of experience 5 times? So
yeah, exactly.
So this is generally, I think what you said, Marc, about being in the same company or doing the same work is just I don't ask this upfront because it would sound might be rude, but this is the question I try to answer for myself about the candidate. If he or she has exactly 5 years of experience or 1 year repeated 5 times. And so and what I recommend the young, no, not compared to me, but the young engineers is to basically, if you see something in the market, something in the news that's coming up, a new technology, at least try it. At least write hello world in all the languages that you see around.
Yeah, good idea, in fact.
So I always try to explore new things. Maybe you don't know that what you are good at yet. Maybe you think you are good at, say, JavaScript, but you started to write front end in Flutter, and then you say, yeah, you are better in Dart. So so as I already said, that developers are the fastest growing species. So they have the most capability of evaluation, or they get evolved really well. So I insist on always keep learning and try to be say jack of all, but keep one thing, one sword in your arsenal, in which you are master at. So what I generally say that if you if you have more than 10 or 15 years of experience and saying that you are a front-end engineer, only do front-end, or saying you are a back-end engineer, so it might not sound very good, because you 15 years, or instead you could do anything. Learning a new language should be just a night or two for you, because you know how to code. So this comes from if you try multiple languages all the time. And don't stick to one thing, because you don't know that the thing that you are doing will be relevant anymore tomorrow or not.
Yeah, I just say CoffeeScript.
I have 2 points as well. They also complement Marc and Sanyam good advices. One is fail fast, learn faster. During our entire career, doesn't matter how many years, we will fail, and we will fail a lot. In the beginning, we will delete the entire production database, and part of the business. So fail fast, it's like someone else blame that give you right to delete the database. So move on. So this is the first one. And the second one is I like the agile concept, the methodology, as a kind of like a life practice. So my advice is be agile, not in terms of speed, but in terms of the principles and the methodologies, expectation, adaptation, and transparency. This is very powerful when we are building our career.
Also, I would extend this slightly even to this more approachable. I mean, agile, or definitely, especially nowadays, is stay flexible. Never stick to also one environment or one approach or one thing. It's actually what you guys both said. Stay flexible in each situation, because I know this from some companies, they have approaches, like methodologies that you don't agree with because you know it in another way, but you need to stay flexible. Otherwise, you get stuck at some point and get unsatisfied, and this is not a good situation then that you end up in.
Just to add a disclaimer to that, the idea is to be agile, not to do agile. So
yeah, true. That makes even more sense. Yes.
Quick one item before you drop us off. I learned this what Marc shared in the hard way. In 2010, I used to be like I had tons of Microsoft.NET certifications, and I was like very expensive professional at the time in Microsoft.NET. And I decided to go to the forest, explore Amazon forest, and 5 years later, I returned and I thought I knew something. It's like, whatever, man. I'm like, have tons of certifications. Let me sit and do something. The lesson learned, technology evolved in a way that I lost. And kids with 2 years experience was kind of like beating me hard in some technologies because I was just outdated. And I miss all this agile concept and at the same time the velocity of the new technologies, because back then it was like every 1 year Microsoft used it to release a new Microsoft.NET framework. I had 1 year to study, and then it's just like a new version of Angular every week. And you need to study like non-stop. So this, what you said, Marc, is like is also remarkable, because really, like, we need to be
evolving,
flexible to adapt to the changes as fast as we can.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think this is pretty comprehensive. Yeah.
I think that's just going to have to wrap it up. Obviously, it's been about an hour talking now. It's been great. Obviously, you've all put in some very good points, some very interesting topics. But yeah, I think we'll cut it short there. Well, put an end to it. Not short. We've been talking for an hour. But yeah, wish you all a good evening, and I'm sure that we'll all speak again soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys, and have a very nice evening. See ya.
Looking forward
Bye-bye.
Everyone, it was amazing talk. Sanyam and Marc, Aiden, thank you very much, guys.
Cheers.
Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.